Hello, world. Welcome to the next edition of the OMB, or not OMB. Can't get 4 words out when I'm messing it up. ATF eRegs bi-weekly demo. And now I have an echo because I have the YouTube channel open on the other tab. I'm messing this up all over the place. Okay, so we're ready to start. I will share my slides. Ta-da. Okay, this is a bi-weekly demo of the work that we've done for alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and explosives on the eRegulations platform. This is probably going to be this next sprint might be our last one, or we might have a little after that, but we're basically sort of wrapping up this engagement, and we're going to show the work we've done for the last 2 weeks. If you want to see the sort of progression, you can check out any of the other videos in our channel. There's a playlist with all the other ATF eRegs demos that we've done and recorded, so you can see the work that we're doing. At 18F, we work in the open. Everything we do is open source and shared, so to follow that, we record these and share them out to the public. And with that, we will jump to the demo, and I will toss to Carolyn, who will talk about related documents.
I think you're tossing it to me, Will.
Oh, geez, I just locked my computer too. Okay, too tight.
All right, screen share here. All right, so one of the things that ATF wanted us to add was the ability for users to see related documents, that is, documents that ATF have defined as related to various sections in the regulations that we present using eRegs. So we are putting them in the right-hand sidebar. Their presence or absence is shown at the top of that sidebar because we think that they are the most important piece of additional information for users. If there are related documents to that particular section, the total number and the number of each type of document are indicated. So this is a shot of what they look like if there's no related documents. The rulings and help sections that have been there for quite some time are still there, and we have a little piece that says no related documents. The total number, if there are some, is shown at the top, and then, as stated, the number of each type. If it's greater than 0, I suppose the number of each type is shown. Here's one with 2 related documents. Here's one with 3, 2 rulings, and a FAQ. Each document type can be expanded to show the contents within it, which includes links to the documents themselves. The documents themselves are mostly PDFs that live on various ATF pages. The data that we're using is provisional right now, so we have a kind of subset of what sections have related documents. It's provisional because the API that we have agreed upon with the ATF developers to store all of that information isn't live yet, but we have agreed on what it should look like and how it should work. And here are some links to show some good example sections for this feature. We're hoping that the API will go live within the next couple of weeks, at which point it will be possible for ATF to add more documents to it on their end without our having to be involved in that process. That's it for me. I will pass it on to, I think, Carolyn. Nope, looks like CM.
Everybody loves Carolyn, and so we just want to pass it over to her.
I have to figure out how to stop presenting.
All right. Thank you, Tag. So one of the things we worked on was search. It's one of the high priorities for ATF. And to explain the changes, we have to kind of go through where it was before, and that will indicate where it's changed. So If we think about how the regulation is broken up, say we're looking at a specific part, CFR part. Here we're looking at 447. It is split into sections. And I just numbered these 1, 2, 3, 4. These aren't the actual sections in 447. But each part is split into sections, and those sections are further composed of paragraphs. And one of the nice things about eRegs is that we can think about every single paragraph independently, which means that we can say, just give me paragraph 4472A1, capital B, Roman numeral 4. That's completely possible in our system. Unfortunately, we've been using that system for search as well. So when someone searched for something, say they search for Russian rifle, we would look at the first paragraph and say, is Russian rifle in there? No, okay, move on to the next one. And we would effectively look at every single paragraph in sequence. And only if the individual paragraphs had Russian rifle would we return them. This caused a few problems. First, if Russian rifle appeared in these 4 paragraphs spread out over 3 sections, we would get results like this. And you'll notice that 4471 has 2 paragraphs in the search results, which can be confusing because the UI is presented as a single section at a time. And so when you looked at these search results, not only would they be only kind of relevant because they were 2 specific paragraphs, not whole sections, but it would be confusing because in this case, 4471C is coming before, in the search results, 4471A. More problematic, if we search for Russian rifle, and the word Russian appeared in the first paragraph of a section, rifle the last paragraph of a section, we wouldn't get any search results because there is no single paragraph that contains Russian rifle. The news style, just for comparison, the news style gets rid of the delineation of paragraphs with regards to search. And so when we go to search, we're searching whole sections at a time. So say these 4 paragraphs had Russian rifle in them, then the search results would come up like this. So section 3 comes up first because it has the most matches. It has 2 paragraphs that presumably have Russian rifle in them a few times. Then section 1 would come up. Say it had Russian rifle twice in that 1 paragraph. And then section 2 would come up because it had Russian rifle once. So the benefit here is that we're matching user expectations with regards to searching whole sections. And it also gives a lot more context to your search. There's just more text to be comparing as opposed to looking at specific paragraphs. In terms of the interface, the search results are returned showing the section's title, but the paragraph of the first match. So in this case, paragraph A of 4473 didn't contain Russian rifle. So the paragraph that we're showing, the text that we're showing, is paragraph B, because that's the first time Russian rifle appears. And when the user clicks on that section title, they will be taken to section 3, but they'll be scrolled to paragraph B, because that's the first match. Additionally, when we were looking at the search results, so this is a section, it's lorem ipsum text, but we were looking at the search results, and previously we had been treating all text the same. Now we're going to start weighting the results. So if the section title is weighted most heavily. So if your search results match the title, you're very likely to get that section. Similarly, any sort of subtitles in there are weighted as well, not as heavily as the section title, but they're still weighted more than the text themselves, which gives a more useful search result. In terms of status, we've got the initial version complete. It will go live with the push today. We've got a few corner cases that we should go over, and some more testing, and all that will happen next sprint. And now for real, let's hand it over to Carolyn.
Okay, so hello, the moment you've all been waiting for. Can you see me or can you see my slide? I guess that's my question.
You right now.
Okay, that's not what I'm. Let's see what we got. I think I know how to computer. Here we go. So research. What we did in the past couple of weeks is we actually talked to a number of external users. So we had about roughly 45-minute interviews with different people. As far as like the topics we were covering, we covered the same focus as we had when we talked to internal users. So we wanted to learn more about related documents, how they think about versioning specifically in regards to rulings, and well as how they use print and PDF. And the reason why we did this is we wanted to see if there were any major differences between external users and internal users. Everyone that we talked to were either compliance managers for their organization, maybe a large organization or small, or they consulted with companies about compliance. So that's the mindset that they're coming in with. And most of them have a pretty good familiarity with the regulations and other documents for the area that they focus on. And all of them were pretty familiar with how to use a computer, how to use the internet. A couple were digital experts and actually worked on web products. So keep that in mind as we go through. We might see different preferences or different actions or different priorities if we were to test with people who rarely use the internet. So these were the questions. You know, what type of documentation is most important? Is it different from what internal users said? Do users want to see rulings that have been superseded? When do users want to print regulations or parts of regulations, and why? And when do users want to create PDFs of regulations or parts of regulations? So let's dive into related documents. And we're going to learn some things that validate the direction we're going in, and we're also going to learn some things about you know, how we could even push that further. So just be forewarned. The main thing is that there is a disconnect between how users want to find information and how ATF currently presents it. So we'll dig into that. Users want to find information that relates to an activity or scenario. So these are the types of questions that users have when they're looking at regulations. What prompts them to look up a regulation or other documents? They'll be like, can I sell ammo to a person from California if I'm in the other state? Or what information is required in blocks 24 through 30 about the manufacture import of firearms, of the firearm in 4473? Or who is supposed to report a missing shipment of explosives? So they're all scenario-based or activity-based. And that's sort of what prompts people to go look up guidance from ATF. But until now, and until we've started working on the related documents section, ATF has organized its content by document type. So what that means is a user is thinking, can I sell ammo to a person from California if I'm in another state? And they go to the ATF website and they look at the rules and regulations section for firearms, and then they don't know where to go from there. They're like, do I look in rulings? Do I have to look in open letters? Do I look in regulations? It doesn't really help them look for what they find what they want. One user described it this way. She said, you almost have to know a document exists in advance, and many people don't know that. So you have to know you have to look for a ruling if there's one out there. Once they get to rulings, there's certain document pages. They're like, further questions. How do I know which ones are current? What about all the other types of documents? Do I have to look there? Or I remember reading an article, but I don't remember if it was a newsletter or an open ruling or open letter or a ruling or what kind of document that was contained in. Ultimately, external users don't care what document type information comes in. They just want to find the answer to their question. When one user was very explicit with this, he says, we looked at the law, the statute, the regulations, the rulings, the newsletter, guides, info on the ATF website, and HTML text, handbooks like from the NSA, or any form of medium that contains a rule or interpretation. So it doesn't matter where the information is coming from. If it's from a valid source, they want to look at it. Similarly, users find the newsletters extremely useful, but they have a hard time to find past articles. And this seems to be because the newsletters, the way they're organized is by date instead of by topic, and the articles are gathered together in one document, even if they're on separate topics. So almost every user said they really enjoyed the newsletters, but that it was difficult to look through them. So we got into, in the interview, we showed the users the interface and the rulings to see how they reacted. And they were really excited about it. They said it's very easy to navigate. And they even said things like it puts the impetus on the licensee to be compliant, which is what we want when we're issuing regulations and guidance. So there was a lot of excitement about that as a feature. And they also validated the decision to add additional documents. So they would say things like, it would be nice if you could have open letters. One of the things that was interesting about the research, it was very hard to get a definitive list of what types of documents they wanted to see. And I think that's because they don't really care what type of document, they just want to find the answer to their question. As far as whether or not they wanted to see rulings that were either superseded or outdated in some other way, there was disagreement. A lot of people said they just wanted to know what was current. They didn't want to be distracted by past stuff. But another user made the case that, you know, if you're being inspected for something you did 1.5 years ago, you want to see what was in effect at that time. Either way, whether rulings are, whether we display past rulings or not in this interface, they want to be able to very easily see whether or not it's currently in effect or whether it's expired for some reason. And they struggle a little bit today in figuring out what that is. We also talked to them about HTML, PDF, and print formats. And interesting, somewhat similar to related documents, they choose different formats based on the task they're trying to accomplish and the physical location where they are, and in particular, whether they have easy access to a computer or online access. And so the main tasks that you usually see are search, reading, and sharing. There's also an understanding main category that users do when they're referencing regulations, but that didn't really have an impact on format. So for searching, by far the best was HTML. And that was because it was easier to pull that up in search engines as well as searching within. PDFs, if they're searchable, they will use those, but it's a little bit more limited, as you might expect. And print, they don't use much for print. If they already know where it is and they have a print copy handy, they might pull it up that way, but they're not looking for new information with print in general. As far as reading goes, as long as something is easy to read, they'll use that format. So if the PDF is nicely formatted, they're happy to use a PDF. You can see like 2 online versions. One user said the print is bigger and easier to read on the eRegs version than the eCFR version. So it's really just a matter of, if we pay attention to the reading experience, it almost doesn't matter what version or what type of format they're using. And as far as sharing, it sort of runs the gamut. So people will often copy and paste text from either a website or a PDF. And that's probably the most frequent form of sharing, is they're copying that text. That's the same that what we heard from internal users. Somewhat less frequently, they'll send someone a link to a website. Sometimes they will highlight the text within a PDF and then attach that to an email. And that way they can draw attention to a certain section, but give them the entire PDF. And occasionally they'll share information with printed copies, but that only happens in person. And a lot of times, if there's internet access, they might pull it up on a screen. It really depends. So what we see in terms of location is that, you know, when they're at the desk or connected, the preference is generally website or PDF. If they're in a meeting, so they're away from their desk, but they do have Wi-Fi access. It could be any one of those three. It just depends on their preference. But if they're in the field and offline, obviously they can't access the website, but they're just as likely to use a PDF that they downloaded as they are to use a print version. There were some other findings that came up. One is that we had a little bit more confusion around the effective date in the UI. And one person suggested if I were to explain it, I would just say this is the regulation at this time. He was looking at a previous version, and just be a little more explicit about what it means. I didn't see anyone have trouble navigating the eReg site or using the table of contents. In fact, they really, really liked that feature. And in terms of like the usability of either creating a print or PDF, it was about the same as internal users. So most of them figured out how to do it when we asked, but they struggled a little bit. So here's the recommendations, and I've got long-term and short-term. So long-term is going to be most likely out of scope for this phase. And probably the most important one is to explore ways to allow users to find guidance by activity or scenario, regardless of the document type. So what happens if we free the content from the specific types of documents and think about it more in terms of subject matter? And explore and test options for showing documents that are outdated. It does seem like there is sometimes a need for that, but they really want to be able to tell if a document is no longer active before they even open it. Short-term goals are goals that we think that we can do in this phase. So we want to prioritize clarifying the effective date in the UI for current and previous versions of the regulations. And since the navigation largely works for external users, we'd like to deprioritize major navigation changes until we can test them. That doesn't mean we can't change the navigation. We can certainly explore options, but we already have something that works, and sometimes even small changes in navigation can take something that works and make it incredibly difficult. So we just want to be sure that any changes we make, we thoroughly iterate on and test with users. And I will pass back to Will.
Excellent. And with that, we will wrap the demo. Our next and probably last demo will probably be September 1st in 2 weeks. And we will see you all on the internet then. Thanks.
Thank you.